of Economics, Nirmala College for Women, Coimbatore. Friends, in this video, we are going to discuss one of the chapter in economics, that is theory of demand. These are all the topics to be learned in this chapter. Meaning and definition of demand, features of demand, determinants of demand, demand function, law of demand, market and individual demand curve, types of demand, reasons for downward sloping of demand curve. Now we will discuss these topics in brief. The first topic we are going to discuss about definition of demand. Demand is defined as the quantity of a commodity which the consumer is willing and able to purchase at a particular price and particular point of time. Now let us discuss the meaning of demand. Demand refers to the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to purchase at different prices during a period of time. From this meaning and definition, we would clearly identify the 5 conditions of demand. 5 conditions are: first condition is that the consumer should decide to purchase a commodity. Second one is the consumer should have purchasing power. Third condition, the consumer should have willingness to spend the money for the product. Fourth one is particular price. Fifth one is final one, it is a particular point of time. When these 5 conditions are satisfied, then there is a demand which is an. Coming to the next concept, the demand equation. Demand comprises of 3 things. First thing is decide to buy. Second one is ability to pay. Last one is willingness to buy. Equation of demand, the summation of desire, willingness to pay and ability to pay. Let us see some of the features of demand. Demand is always with reference to price. Demand is to be referred to a given period of time. Consumer must have purchasing power to buy a commodity. Consumer must also be ready to exchange his money for the commodity he desires. For example, Mr. Muthu's demand for sugar at rupees 20 per kg is 2 kgs per week. Coming to the next concept, determinants of demand. There are 5 main factors that are influencing demand. One is price of the commodity. Second one is price of related goods. Third one is income of the consumer. Fourth one, consumer expectations. Fifth one, taste and preferences of the consumer. Now we would discuss the each determinants of demand in brief. First determinant of demand is the price of the commodity. It explains that demand for the commodity is always inversely related to the price of the commodity when other determinants being constant. It means that a rise in the price of commodity brings about fall in its demand and vice versa. This happens because of income and substitution effects. Now let us understand the relationship of price of commodity and the demand for the commodity using the demand schedule. When the price of the commodity is low, the consumer will prefer to buy a large quantity of commodity and the prices goes on increasing. The quantity of demanded of the commodity will be goes on decreasing. This shows inverse relationship between price of the commodity and the demand for the commodity. Coming to the second determinant of demand, that is the prices of related goods. According to this concept, goods are categorized into 2 types: substitute goods, complementary goods. Substitute goods are those goods which can be substituted in the price of other goods. For example, tea and coffee. There would have a direct relationship between demand for tea and the prices of the coffee. If the prices of the coffee is high, the consumer automatically prefer the substitute commodity tea. So the demand for the tea increases due to rise of the prices of coffee. So there would have a direct relationship between demand for tea and the prices of the substitute good coffee. Coming to the complementary goods. Complementary goods are those goods which should consume simultaneously to satisfy human wants. For example, vehicle and petrol. When the prices of the petrol increases, the vehicle sales automatically decreased. So there would have inverse relationship between demand for good and the prices of complementary good. Coming to the next determinant of the demand, that is income of the consumer. The relationship between demand for the commodity and the income of the consumer is explained by the concept income demand. According to this concept, the goods are categorized into three types: inferior goods, necessary goods, luxury goods. Coming to the inferior goods, when the income of the consumer increases, then the demand for the inferior goods will be decreasing. Next, coming to the necessary goods. When the income of the consumer increases, then he trying to satisfy his basic needs like food, clothing and shelter. When the excess of income after satisfaction of these wants, he prefers to buy the luxury goods. Coming to the luxury goods, when income of the consumer increases, then he will prefer to buy the luxury goods. When income of the consumer increases, then the demand for luxury goods also increases. Changes in expectations. Expectations also bring about a change in demand. Expectations of rise in price in future results in increase in demand at present. The next determinant of demand is taste and preferences of the consumer. Taste and preferences of the consumer generally change over time to time due to fashion, advertisement, habits, age, family composition, etc. The new fashion goods have high demand compared with out of fashion goods. Coming to the last determinants of demand, that is other factors. Size and composition of population. Higher population will have more demand. The level of national income and its distribution. Income distributed between low income group, the demand for necessary goods will be more. The large portion of income distributed between high income group, then the demand for luxury goods will be more. Sociological factors, weather conditions, advertisement, government policy, taxation and subsidy policies, trade conditions, consumer credit facility and interest rate. Coming to the next concept, that is demand function. Mathematical statement of functional relationship between demand for a product and its determinants is called demand function. Here demand function dx equal to f of px y ps pc t a. Where dx consists of quantity demanded of product, px consists of price of the product, m consists of money income of the consumer, ps consists of the price of the substitute, pc consists of price of complementary goods, t consists of taste and preferences, a consisting of advertising. The law of demand. The law of demand was developed by Alfred Marshall. The law of demand expresses the nature of functional relationship between the price of the commodity and its quantity demanded. Law of demand states that people will buy more at lower prices and buy less at higher prices, other things remaining the same. Professor Samuelson. Coming to the next concept, assumptions of law of demand. Consumer's income remains unchanged. Second assumption, taste and preferences of consumer remains unchanged. Price of substitute goods and complementary goods remains unchanged. There are no expectations of future changes in the prices of the commodity. There is no change in the fashion of the commodity, etc. Individual demand schedule. It is a tabular representation of a quantity demanded of a consumer at various prices at various point of time. Demand schedule shows the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Professor Samuelson stated that the relationship between the quantity demanded and the price is known as demand schedule. Now there are two types of demand schedule, individual demand schedule and also the market demand schedule. Demand curve. In this diagram, y-axis represents price of the commodity. X-axis represents quantity demand. DD is the demand curve, which has negative slope, that is slope downward from the left to right, which indicates that when price falls, the demand expands, and when the price rises, the demand contracts. When the price was rupees 5, the quantity demanded of the consumer was 1. When the price was decreased from 5 to 4, the quantity demanded of the consumer increased 1 to 2. The price again decreased to 3. Quantity demanded increased 3. The price was decreased at 2. The quantity demanded of the consumer increasing 3 to 4. The price was decreased 2 to 1. The quantity demanded of the consumer increases 5. DD is the demand curve, that is slope downward from left to right, which indicates that when price falls, the demand expands, and when price rises, the demand contracts. Market demand schedule. Market demand schedule is a table showing different quantities of a commodity that all the consumers are willing to buy at different prices during a given period of time. This diagram below shows that the market demand curve represents the market demand schedule, assuming two consumers, consumer A and consumer B in the market. Market demand schedule. In this market demand schedule, the price of the commodity was 54321. The quantity demanded by consumer A was 12345. The quantity demanded of consumer B was 23456. Market demand, we can get market demand for the summation of quantity demanded of consumer A and also the quantity demanded of consumer B. We can get 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. When the price was 5, quantity demanded of consumer A was 1, quantity demanded of consumer B was 2 likewise. When price was 4, quantity demanded of A was 2 and quantity demanded of B was 3. Now what is market demand? When we make the summation of both consumer A and consumer B, we get market demand. When price is 5, the quantity demanded of consumer A is 1, quantity demanded of consumer B is 2. Then the market demand is 1 plus 2, 3. price is 1 rupee, quantity demanded of A is 5 and the quantity demanded of B is 6. The market demand is 11. Market demand curve. Graphical representation of market demand schedule is called market demand curve. Now you can see the demand curve of consumer A. When price was rupees 4, quantity demanded was 1. When price was rupees 3, quantity demanded was 2. When price was decreased to rupees 2, quantity demanded was increased 3. When price was least, that is 2 rupees, the quantity demanded was maximum, that is 4. Consumer B's demand curve. It is also same as consumer A's demand curve. When price is maximum, then the quantity demanded is minimum. When the price is minimum, then the quantity demanded is maximum. Market demand curve is more flatter than the individual demand curve. The reason is that proportionate change in quantity demanded is more than proportionate change in the price. That means price is not changing to that extent as quantity demanded is changing. Market demand curve. The market demand curve for a commodity is derived by adding the quantum demanded of the commodity by all the individual constituting the market. In this diagram, the final market demand curve represents the addition of the demand curve of the individuals, that is A and B at the same price. Here y-axis represents the price of the product and x-axis represents the quantity demanded by both the consumers A and B. When the price is 5, the quantity demanded by the consumers was 3. The price decreased 5 to 4. Quantity demanded will increase 3 to 5. Price decreased 3 rupees. Quantity demanded increased 7. Price decreased 2 rupees. Quantity demanded increased by 9. Price decreased least 1 rupee. Quantity demanded is maximum, that is 11. Coming to the next concept, types of demand. Direct and derived demand, domestic and industrial demand, autonomous and induced demand, perishable and durable goods demand, new and replacement demand, final and intermediate demand, individual and market demand, company and industry. First type of demand is direct and derived demand. Direct demand refers to demand for goods meant for final consumption. It is the demand for consumers' goods like food items, ready-made garments and houses. By contrast, derived demand refers to the demand for goods which are needed for further production. It is the demand for producers' goods like industrial raw materials, machine tools and equipments. Derived and autonomous demand. Autonomous demand, also known as direct demand. It is when the demand for a product is independent of all other goods in the market. Derived demand is an economic demand that directly correlates with the demand for other product. For example, if the demand for tires goes up, the demand for rubber will increase proportionately. Domestic and industrial demand. In case of certain industrial raw materials which are also used for domestic purpose, this distinction is very meaningful. For example, coal has both domestic and industrial use, and the distinction is important from the standpoint of pricing and the distribution of coal. Perishable and durable goods demand. Both consumer goods and producer goods are further classified into perishable or single-use goods. The durable goods are further classified into repeated use goods. The former refers to final output like bread or raw materials like cement, which can be used only once. The latter refers to items like shirt, car or machine, which can be used repeatedly. The next fourth type of demand is new and replacement demand. Producers goods like machines, the demand for spare parts of a machine is replacement demand. But the demand for the latest model of a particular machine, say latest generation computer, is a new demand. In course of preventive maintenance and breakdown maintenance, the engineer and his crew often express their replacement demand. But when the new process or new technique or new product is to be introduced, there is always a new demand. Fifth type of demand is final and intermediate demand. This distinction is again based on the type of goods, final or intermediate. The demand for semi-finished products, industrial raw materials and similar intermediate goods are all derived demands, that is induced by the demand for final goods. In the context of input-output models, such distinction is often employed. Coming to the next type of demand, individual and market demand. This distinction is often employed by the economist to study the size of the buyer's demand, individual as well as collective. A market is visited by different consumers. Consumer differences depending on factors like income, age, sex, etc. The next type of demand is company and industry demand. You may think of the demand for cement produced by the Cement Corporation of India, that is called as a company's demand, or the demand for the cement produced by all cement manufacturing units including the CCI, that is an industry's demand. Similarly, there may be demand for engineers by a single firm or demand for engineers by the industry as a whole, which is an example of demand for an input. Why demand curve slopes downwards? There are four reasons for downward sloping demand curve: the law of diminishing marginal utility, change in the number of consumers, various uses of a commodity. Fourth one is income. The first reason, the law of diminishing marginal utility. According to this law, other things being equal, as we consume a commodity, the marginal utility derived from its successive units go on falling. Hence, the consumer purchases more units only at a lower price. Consumer goes on purchasing a commodity till the marginal utility of the commodity is greater than its market price and stops when marginal utility equal to price. That is, when consumer is at equilibrium. When price of the commodity falls, marginal utility of the commodity becomes greater than price, and so consumers start purchasing more till again marginal utility equal to price. It therefore follows that the diminishing marginal utility implies downward sloping demand curve and the law of demand operates. Changes in the number of consumers. Many consumers who were unable to buy a commodity at a higher price also start buying when the price of commodity falls. Old consumers starts buying more when price falls. Various uses of commodity. Commodity may have many uses. The number of uses to which the commodity can be put will increase at a lower price and vice versa. Last one is income effect. When price of a commodity falls, the purchasing power, that is the real income of the consumer, increases. Thus, he can purchase the same quantity with lesser money, or he can get more quantity for the same money. This is called income effect of the change in the price of the commodity. Thank you.